Welcome back to Duro3 YouTube channel. This is part 2 of the Computator CT-1000 repair and upgrade. This is basically showing what I've had to do to fit the motor and mainly the solenoid into this assembly. It is now in there, been tested, and there's been a few upgrades on the way through to get things to work better. So I've actually got the motor sitting in there. I've made up some little standoffs here. That's in 9mm aluminium. It's only just to support it a little bit. It's actually sitting flush up against the base here, so it's pretty hard against there. I'll remove the motor and show you what I've done with that as for starters. So basically, I nipped them up a bit too tight. And so basically, I've removed the original. How about I go here so you can see what I'm doing? I removed the original screws for the motor, which had standoffs on it, to having some screws that go all the way through and tap directly into the base, because since the bottom of this here, this base plate was already threaded for the previous motor, so now I've got these brand spanking new super long screws. I'll just drop it, so they just go straight through now and straight into the tapping. Save me, because I can't really put anything on the other side of it because no nuts and stuff. So oops, lost a washer. So basically this is going to be a stripped down, so I can move on to the next section as well. So this stage is already working. So we have the 4 standoffs. I milled this up on my lathe just to make sure they're exactly the right height. And there goes my alarm. Better turn that off. Always something bloody getting in here. Okay, so basically the motor now, I'm going to sort of hold it together. So basically, to extend the shaft on this, I have made this on the lathe extension for the shaft, and this is a little locator that fits into the top housing on this hole here. That hole just there, that slides into there, as obviously right to stop it from moving around too much under load. So basically I've milled this up a shaft extension. I've used these very long Allen keys because they've got a lot more body in the Allen key parts for doing it up nice and tight. These are held in with Loctite, and there's Loctite on the shaft as well to make sure it actually physically stays where it's put. And also this is grub screwed here. It had a step down. I put a file mark through the end of the shaft. So this is just one piece and step down to suit this. There's a hole on the end because the shaft went up to there on the inside. So basically this is all up and running, and there's nothing anywhere around this that's going to impede. It might look funny, but at least I can do it up nice and tight, because with the little short ones they only have about, well, a very small amount getting onto the Allen key. So with these long ones you can really lay into it and do them up really tight, because these are high tensile too as well. So the motor is basically done, working and tested. So that's now out of the equation. Upon doing all the mods for the solenoid, I found an inherent problem with the original design. The original design had this spring, if you can get the light in the right direction, was attached to that hole onto a post just here. Now what that was doing was actually physically pulling the solenoid back out under load, but also lifting this up. As you can see, it's lift up a little bit here, but I can play with it. It was moving. But the other one was pulling up so hard, even when the actual solenoid had pulled in like this, you couldn't move this. It was actually jammed up hard on here because it was physically pulling it. The solenoid's pulled in and this thing's jamming in. It was just like, everything was just really weird how it was working. So basically I went about because I had to put the solenoid in, which is sitting in a slightly different position, as in it's higher than the actual shaft. So basically I have used the imitator. This is their little part that they have for this for the one of their this is on the floor part of the solenoid assembly, and I've cut it down and fixed it in there. It's on a flexible shaft going through the guts here, and this here, and I'll pull it down, I'll show you, it's actually got it can move, so it's allowing it to move. So basically I'll just, and also I'll remove the spring from there and put it up the top here. So I'll use again the imitator spring, so it's not putting anywhere near as much load on this, because with the spring sitting here it was pulling up really hard, and on its way back out again it was actually jamming in this position, like where this one doesn't seem to, because it's actually pushing these as opposed to pulling it from here. So we shall, I've got that all working, so the spring comes down through here, we'll see in a minute, and then I'll show you how I mounted the actual solenoid in. So we shall get the, I've had another little problem too. I'll talk about this little piece here in a minute. So we'll get the actual, oops, got the wrong one. So I'm going to get out the, take the actual shaft and everything back out again. So this is a strip down, so I can move on to the next stage, because this has been is now working. After all the work I've done on it to get it to work, redesign a few things as usual. Going to redesign a few things. It's all part of the challenge. Didn't want to let this rotator beat me. So basically, and in fact that I've used a fair bit of the actual original solenoid assembly, or modified the original solenoid assembly I should say, for an imitator to work in this. And the benefit of having this swing up and down is I can adjust, and it's not fixed. So what I found before was a solenoid being very fixed would track and would actually physically be forced into a position that sometimes it didn't want to go into. And there goes the battery charger. Everything's beeping at me this morning. So basically, being the fact, and plus I can get the bolts in and out, so it has a benefit. So basically, we should move around this way. We'll get the actual solenoid, not the brake wedges out, when I find the right Allen key. So basically now, if I just undo, put this way, undo the first pivot or the cantilever point. These will be all done up with Loctite when the whole thing goes together for its final time. So basically now, with that out, all I need to do is compress the spring. Oh, wait a sec. I've got to take out the, what I forgot. I'm going to remove the little top plates. So we're going to move out the E-clips. These are the little E-clips. Let's remove these. And this is the little top hat that actually holds the top of the solenoid from flying out the top. So now we can just slide out, just compress the spring with this finger, and then we can show you the what I did here. So basically, this is, I haven't modified this spring at all. Maybe a little bit clicked at the end. That's all I have done. So all I've done is added a screw here. I've manufactured a little spacer, put a washer on, and that's the actual lock for this side of it, and it's jammed in directly beside this one here, this screw that goes through, which holds it. I've actually drilled straight down the side of it, and I've tapped directly on, screw onto screw in a sense, and I've Loctited it in position. And the same thing applies with this here. This is the pivot point, and I've got a little brass sleeve in there with a little washer on it, just to allow it to move a little bit, but still lock off. So that there is basically, all intents and purposes, the brake. So it actually works on that situation like that. And being the fact that this is the imitator spring and was used on the imitators, it's going to work fine, and it is working fine. So we might just get the other half out as you see how it moves, so I can actually show you what's going on with this. Now you can see that there is moving reasonably well, where before it would be all over the countryside. This arm was really loose in this, so that there was really loose, and this whole arm was rocking backwards and forwards this way, and also causing it to have and it was sloppy, so it wasn't retracting as far as it should have as well. So here we go. So we shall remove the E-clips from this side as well. I'll make a bit of a mess of it. Or maybe I should have taken that out before I did that. So we'll show you more of that later on. Now it's fallen out, so we'll get rid of these E-clips first. Up you come. Oh yeah. There's the other saddle. I'm pretty sure saddle. It probably is a saddle. Now, sometimes you can get this out, and sometimes you can't. So, well, we can't get it out. So we need to undo this now. Getting it in is easy, but getting it out is a lot harder. So I want to disassemble this anyway. You can't get that way, so just come on up here. Out you come. Oh, yeah, we can get that way. That's how you go. That's how you do it. I should have realised that. Might just nip it back up again. So basically, there's our little cantilever. Now, I made a brand new one of these, and I've gone up a bit up in size to actually stabilise it. So it's basically now a lot better. I'll be removing that as well later on. We're just going to do a bit of a brief rundown of everything here. So basically, as you see, the wedge part of the solenoid, or the arm, is now done. So this pivots, and this shaft here is actually off the original imitators. It was between these anyway. I just repositioned the E-clips there and there. So I did repaint the top, and then realised it was grabbing on the inside when I rebuilt this thing. So here we are. Here's the actual solenoid mounted up. I've used the original chassis. There was two of these, one on either side, which had arms on it, which I probably should have showed you that, but not a problem. So basically, I have screwed straight through. This is not totally finished yet, because I'm going to be doing a bit more work on this. So the top two screw into the chassis here. The bottom one screws into the chassis just there. Now at the end here, there was a big void where there was nothing to screw to. So as you can see, the end of the screw sitting there. So basically, it was a matter of making these spaces up here in aluminium, which go all the way through. And then I was only going to do the bottom, and then I made the top. So I'll show you these, what I designed up. So these are all M3 high tensile black steel Allen keys that I got a hold of. So we'll just loosen these off, so I can actually get these out. And again, these will be locked in right in front of the camera, only just. I need to bring it down a bit more. So basically, they'll be Loctited in position. So there they are. Washer and spring washer on that. And little bits I did to this to get it to work. Righty-o-ty. So we'll take that out. We'll take the next one out. This one that's tacked into that horizontal chassis as well. But this one's slightly shorter because it's near where the actual limit switches are. And I'll be doing finalisation of that when I'm doing assembly and whatnot of the actual the rest of it, to make sure everything's not hitting anything else. So now this one on this side has got a lot more thread in it, because it's actually tapped into the 10mm, I think it is 10mm flat bar I used. So, and basically then I had to extend the thread on it too as well, from there up to here to accommodate it. So this is the plate that normally is with the, which as I said before there's two of these. They sandwiched this, and bolts went through and held it all together, and then it went off to the chassis, yada yada yada. So basically, I've actually cut it down. I've had to grind out a ditch here to get over that screw there. So basically, that's that part. And also had to grind in, or file in, grooves within the top and the bottom to get it to go up further, because the screws were going to be too close to the top and too close to the bottom as well. So there's our solenoid basically out of the whole shebang. So I manufactured. Oh, I didn't bring the Phillips drive over. So I manufactured this aluminium bracket here, and it mounts two screws, well, one through the top there, into here, and I've got one in the back in the very corner, which also stabilises these ends. I found that this chassis was actually slightly bent. I may not have noticed it before, but it was bent. I'm wondering why I couldn't get things to level up properly. So basically, we'll undo these screws, because it's all going to be pulled apart anyway. I just have to remember how to build it. So this is just an M3, and this is countersunk because it actually the motor comes right really close to there. And we grab the right one. And this one is technically counterboard, but it's actually countersunk because I didn't have a counterboring. So basically, whoops, don't you run away. And then we undo the one for the back, like this. All this just to hold the solenoid in, because these will all be Loctite in their position once the whole thing goes back together again. So as you can see, this is a bit of aluminium, and basically I had it all made up. I had the chamfer at the back to get around all this. These weren't exactly square and everything here. So basically this is all ready to go, and it's just basically holding only one corner, but it's also the space and makes the whole, because it sits like this on the back of this. And I had to step this down a bit of a step there. There's a little rivet here, so you had to get past that. As you can see, that's what it looks like from the back. So that's the bottom one, and the one at the top here, which hasn't been threaded. I probably should have threaded it, but I could maybe later on. But it's just holding by one screw on the back here, so I'm going to remove that as well, because it's, I think I've got the wrong screw. This will do. Remove that out of there. Oh, that's another thing I meant to mention too as well. This here, there is a 3mm recoil insert, so thread insert. So they're stainless steel. So I've got a stainless steel screw there. And the other thing I should have mentioned, I've done the same thing with this particular one that actually holds the actual, which is for, I'm going to get it around the right bloody way. Wrong way around, that way around. So which holds this one here, straight through there. This has recoil inserts in there as well. So you're doing it up and you're not pulling on the aluminium and wearing the aluminium out. So basically that's all happened there. So now we have down to this part of the actual chassis, and I'm going to remove this little sucker as well, because that's got to come off as well, because I need to that needs to be all Loctited when it all gets put back together again. Because the next stage, I'll put that screw back into there again. The next stage of the upgrades and repairs to this rotator I'm going to show you next. So basically what else I need to show you here, all that there's done, that's done. So basically you might notice there's three shafts over here. Now these shafts are for the gears. They are one there, and one there. Only problem being, over the time, these shafts have flogged out, and basically, and that's the purple one down the bottom, they're moving a hell of a lot, not so much as the bottom one, but this middle one is really, 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 really bad. So basically, I'm going to get these brazed into position, and by assembling the whole thing and then brazing them or silver soldering them. I've got to talk to my friend about getting this done, because you can't do that anymore. This is why we've got a uneven wear pattern on this. You'll see it's not worn there, but it's worn there. So thrusts and turning and kicking around. So I need the actual physically. Without doing this, this will not work. It will work, but that's just way too much movement. It's moving backwards and forwards. It's moving a little bit up and down, but nowhere near. Look, the match move is moving here. That's just side flop. And so if you look up and down, nowhere near as much. I'll get it right there. There's up and down. There's the side flop. So the action of how these gears go together is all lateral movement on this one. So it's not good. So I've actually got to physically get these all put back in exactly the right position. And then they're going to get silver soldered in, or welded, or not welded, but brazed into position. This one is in not bad condition, so it hasn't got nowhere near as much wear, top and bottom, a little bit more top and bottom because it's pushing away, this one is. But in all intents and purposes, this one's the best of them all. And this one, it had not much lateral movement up and down, but a little bit more laterally because it all wants to move sideways on this particular design. So that's what is coming up next. That's why I'm stripping it all down. I've got to get this all done, and then I can move forward with the next section and physically get things happening. So what else? I think I've covered the stuff that's up and coming and things that need to happen. And you might notice this, that was the screw that held what was in there, was actually what holds this section in here, or between the two sections. But these were welded a long time ago, so I'll be locking this up really well again. So in there, so basically, and you might notice there's a screw there. This post, this one on the outside, when I got it, this one was actually snapped off. So I had to put a countersunk screw in there because there's things in the road, and that one is okay. So basically, that's probably why the person put these wedges, which they go. Oh, I picked the bloody thing up properly. I'll show you these in a better way later on. No, it's wrong way around. They go in here like this. There was one there, and there was one there. This one was here, and the last one was over here. Whether they actually physically helped a lot, I'm not too sure, but obviously if it's hitting these steel posts and you hit this first as a guide, you're not actually putting any stress onto these, because obviously these, when the wedge gets force against it, it's going to put force onto this. It pivots on the inside, those two arms there, it would pivot on that and want to kick against this. So I think that's why whoever did this made those wedges in, these wedges in here, to physically stop it snapping off and putting heaps of force onto these pins. So there you go. Well, that's where we're up to now. So we shall move forward and basically get on to the next section, which includes doing these shafts and getting them all done, and then I can move on to the next section of this revamp rebuild. The Computator CT, I'm flaring it out every 5 seconds when I do that. There's light everywhere here. So okie dokie, so righty, well, I've made a big mess here. I've stripped everything down. We put that one away. This one felt like aluminium, but it's actually steel. It's magnetic. Righty, okay, we shall see you in part 3. Catch ya.